Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford, and joining me today is the artist who does all of our Slayerfest 98 merch. He has written for Marvel and a couple other comic places.
Hi, I'm Terry Blast.
Hi, Terry. Um, yeah, so we're here to talk season five? Season five, right? Yeah, season five of What We Do in the Shadow. Overall, what'd you think of the season?
I really liked this season. I was curious how it was going to unfold because with the way that the previous season ended, I was like, well, how are they going to do? We found out pretty quickly, but I was like, well, how are they going to do this? This is totally spoiler
Yeah,
heavy,
yeah,
right? Like, okay. I mean, if you haven't seen it, why are you
yeah,
listening?
yeah.
But yeah, I thought like, oh, so is Guillermo going to become a full vampire? Is there going to be an issue? Like it was interesting to see sort of how that unfolded. And then by the end of the season to hear like why it wasn't kind of like taking. It was interesting, but also I feel like they hit us with a like, oh duh, kind of, like
It made sense, right? Yeah,
but I did think that what they did with it was really great. And I liked that it was such a big focus of the season. With his like Laszlo's like animal experiments, like all these like like the little dog. I think there's like a goat too. I don't remember. Um, the fish was so weird. Um, but I did like. I always like an episode where Guillermo is with his family, and they did
yeah.
that again too because he's trying to say goodbye to his mom. That's paired really well with like this insane comedy of the like news. Do you remember that? Like, there's like a news story
Yes,
happening on the
yeah,
street with a broken water main, and then like not Laszlo, Nandor thinks that he's like revealed themselves to the
yeah.
world. They have to hypnotize everybody. So that was really great, and I think that one of my favorite episodes this season. I think it's the penultimate episode, but it's where they go to like Morgan Manor.
Yeah, yeah.
They all get put in these cages, which is when the big reveal happens. Um, I love that they did a roast episode. Like, I just thought this was a really great season. It's probably one of my favorite seasons.
Yeah, I felt like the previous season was a little like wandery. Like it didn't have like this season was like felt more cohesive than the last season did, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Because like even the curse. That the episode, I think it's like episode two or three where Naja's like, oh, I have a curse. I remember thinking, oh, it's the God, what the hell is her name? The host? No.
Guide?
The guide,
The,
right? The guide. I'm
I know,
watching too
right?
much Angel, so I'm like the host. Um,
She would put you in a cage so fast right now for not even remembering
I
her name.
know. But in that episode, I was like, oh, it's her. And then once we continued, I was like, oh, it's not her. She actually is Curse. And then it was like, oh no, I was right the first time. It was her. They just went in for the long con, which I kind of appreciated them like because I didn't really think much of it by the end. And then it was like we went back to it and it was like, okay, cool.
That's so one of the charms of the show, right? Is that like we all watch it with this like with the intent of, oh, we're gonna laugh and it's so funny and whatever. But there's really intricate like little seeds planted and things that I think make it satisfying for someone as they watch a whole season. Um, I I will say that like the whole season. Well, so here's what I can I tell you what I thought was going to happen.
Yes.
And I think I'm not alone in this. I think a lot of people thought this, but I had a feeling that like Guillermo would become a vampire. I didn't I didn't know the storyline or recognize that like it would be a huge issue that like Nandor didn't turn him and that Derek did it as a secret. Um, so I thought that he would become a vampire and it would like change him to a point where Nandor is like, I don't like this.
Mm.
And he would then use his wish, because he still had those wishes, right? To like turn him back. But then we find out, I think there's like maybe it's a throwaway line. I don't remember exactly how they did it, but he pulls the lamp out again and the genie guy's like, no, you used all your wishes.
Yeah.
It's like you can't do that. Um, so I expected that to be the way, and then to be told that it's not was a cool like little twist. Once that happened, and then they do the ceremony at the end of the season, like the fake ceremony,
Yeah.
I I really thought it was this whole season was going to end in a different way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I felt like a few episodes prior, they make a big deal of reminding us that Guillermo almost killed what's his name? Is it the Master? Well, I don't remember what
Baron.
his
The
name is.
Baron. The Baron.
Baron. Uh, not Buffy season one. Um, the Baron. He almost killed him like way long ago when he opened the door in the sunlight, right? And then it happens again this season. He accidentally almost kills him, right? So what we find out is that if they kill Derek, it will reverse like the vampirism of whoever he made,
Mhm.
and that will be what makes Guillermo human again, right? So when that happens, and the Baron is also there, I was like, oh, Guillermo's going to this time he's really going to accidentally kill the Baron, and they're going to end the season with Nadia, Laszlo, and Nandor turning human. And that's not what happened. But
I
I
thought you
thought
were
it
gonna
would have
say
been cool.
dying. I was like, I wouldn't want them to end the season.
No, no, because Guillermo didn't die. He just
Right.
turned human again. So I thought that's what would happen is they would turn human again, and then to be like, oh shit, and the season would be over. But that's not what happened. So
A thing that I do keep going back to is, and I mean, this is just like, I feel like they had to because of the show. They definitely like weirdly took a hard turn into liking Guillermo this season. Like Naja and
she has that
Laszlo.
whole episode where she takes him to like the
Yeah.
emergency clinic, right? And it's like a
Which I
vet.
loved.
That's what I think is great about the show is that they all actually really do care about Guillermo, but in private, right?
Yeah.
If they're alone with him, then they will show affection or care, or like actually, like especially Laszlo this season. So much of his story this season is him um, trying to figure out what's happening to Guillermo. And I'm sure if you ask him, he'd be like, "Oh, this is just because I don't want
Right.
Nandor to kill you, and then we won't have you around to do stuff." For It's like, no, it's because you care about him, and so you're
Yeah.
doing all this. Yeah, I thought that was really great.
Yeah. I really liked, I don't know, I liked seeing them. That's what I kind of had wanted to happen. Like, I wanted it to be like, yeah, they're still like shitty to each other and like whatever, but they do actually like each other. I will say for me, the weakest link is still the guide. Like, it felt like they were kind of putting her in Guillermo's shoes this season
Mm.
of like the one they forget about, the one they kind of like rag on, but like, they don't dislike her particularly. They just like she's kind of annoying to them, right? But they don't.
It's why it makes sense that she in that episode at Morgan Manor where she's like Guillermo's the only one who
Yeah,
understands, so that makes sense. But yeah, there is this like that's kind of what you're already doing with this character. So I would be okay if they took her character in some sort of new direction where like imagine if for some reason she was suddenly in charge of all of them.
right.
That would like really
Yes.
change the dynamic.
I also love the Pride Parade episode where
That
they're
one's
like,
great. That's really funny. Yeah.
and
I
I
mean,
thought it was so accurate the way the neighbors like weren't homophobic, but like had no idea what they were talking about, trying to plan anything or talk about anything gay.
yeah, I don't think the show's ever malicious toward anyone, right? But like in a way, it's almost like, well, but we're going to make fun of everything because in a way where we just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I like that a lot. I really did love the Morgan Manor episode because I love anything that feels like Clue or Rocky Horror. You know what I mean? Like an evil mansion and whatever. Like I think that's fun. I have no idea though, and maybe this is a good thing, but I have no idea where the show can go next.
Yeah.
Like,
Same.
and does anybody know if like they have a certain amount of seasons planned out, or if they're just going to keep going?
Because I know it got renewed for the next season already. Like before this season ended, it was renewed. Um, because everyone was talking about that in our Discord, and someone was like, "Oh, last season it was renewed for at least two more seasons." Um,
Okay,
so I don't know because like
is it going to be like the vampire version of It's Always Sunny and just go on forever? And I did notice, I thought it was so cute. There's a scene where Guillermo is finally in the episode where he goes to see his mom. Um, he finally comes home and he's like, you know what? This is not my problem. He's like, nope, I'm not dealing with this. And he sits down to eat and he opens up a plate of tamales that his mom has, likely packaged for him to take home. And there's a bottle of Mexican Coke. And I was like, this is so Mexican right now that like Mexicans would pick up on it, I think. A lot of Latinos would pick up on it. But like, I think it's not something that, somebody could be watching it and it's like whatever, he's eating dinner, but it's little things like that that I think kind of add a fun element to it.
Harvey has said that his like dream cameo would be Sarah Michelle Gellar. I feel like a show like What We Do in the Shadows could get Sarah Michelle Gellar and could get Trixie and Katya to like do cameos, right? Like they get so many famous people.
Yeah, like I mean, if you ask Trixie and Katya, they're gonna jump at the chance. They're gonna be like, yeah, whatever you want. um
Sarah Michelle Gellar might
and
take some prodding, but
but what an amazing way to like end the show, maybe as like the finale of the show is like he meets her and she's like, oh hey, it's like not a big thing, but like he's like,
yeah.
and then like it kind of end like that'd be a great way to end it, is like with this amazing cameo. Um because they had so many cameos of actors who played vampires, right? When they do like that scene early on with like is it the Vampiric Council?
Yeah, yeah.
And the insinuation is that all these actors played vampires because they are vampires. So why not have a vampire slayer who
Right?
actually like an actor who played a vampire slayer who's just like that's how I would end it. Is that Harvey meets up with Sarah Michelle Gellar, they get attacked by a vampire, she stakes it, and he's like, "What? But you're Sarah Michelle Gellar." She's like, "Yeah, I'm Sarah." Like he's like, "Wait, are you Buff?" She's like, "No, I'm Sarah Michelle Gellar." And then she like stakes a vampire.
I do also want to talk about Nadia because we both love her so much.
Yeah,
I was a little bummed that she killed all the anti-Paxos when everyone in Little Anti-Pax. I was like a little bummed about that, even though I get it, they're
yeah,
vampires, right? But I liked seeing her like connect with the people and
that
like how
was
bad she
fun.
was at it, but she wanted to connect with them.
Yeah, I feel like it's obviously this sort of like um storyline regarding like your cultural heritage and whatnot, which is why I was a little shocked too that that's how it ended up happening. Um, but yeah, I thought it was like a fun storyline to go through to see her in that kind of situation. Um, and I love that like little Antipaxos has been there this whole time, but she like never really knew.
And I
I
like,
think a lot of people can relate to that in some ways. Is like, oh, I didn't know that. Like when I lived in LA, there are so many places I didn't go that were like panaderias, that were like great restaurants. I never went to Olivera Street. I mean, I have now, but like thing, I've talked to so many people who, when I lived in New York City, they lived there their whole lives, and they're like, I've never been to the Statue of Liberty. I don't know, whatever, They're
I
like, I
was just
live
about to
here.
say, I feel like that's such a like common thing living in a big city, right? Like New York or
Hmm.
LA, where it's like, oh, that's a thing I would have liked that I've never fucking heard of.
Right. Is there something they haven't done, like a storyline or kind of an episode type thing they haven't done yet that you want to see, a situation you want to see them in?
Hmm. God, now I maybe like I like when they have to interact with people and they know they can't do vampire things because like they'll get caught or they'll be exposed. So any situation where they're like with a lot of people and they can't do anything, I do really like. So my brain goes to this, but that's because of how our brains are. But I'm like, ooh, put them at like they accidentally end up at like Comic Con and
Oh my
like
God, I was just gonna say the same thing. Seriously, or so a situation though where like, because like you just said, where they can't do vampiric things, but in a situation like that, they might feel. I think they would start to feel, or like maybe there's an episode where they like go LARPing. You know what I mean? Like they're in a situation where doing those things, maybe like baring their teeth or whatever, like maybe they can't turn into a bat,
right.
but like but like they start to get excited that they can kind of be themselves with these like super nerdy people. I think would be really great. That's a fun storyline. I don't
Right.
know what reason they would have to go to this thing, but
Wait,
hey,
okay, now I have it. Okay, they're like weird neighbor wants to go to Comic Con and like gets extra tickets and brings them, and they like somehow mix it up like the way like Superb Owl, like something like they like,
uh
and so they think it's
yeah,
something else.
interesting. Yeah, they go thinking it's something else would be a great way to like just have them show up there. I'm like, what is this?
Although I guess it is really bright there in the Javits Center when you walk in because there's all those windows.
True. But it could be an event that, like, that's why I say, like, maybe LARPing. Maybe it's something that happens at night, or who knows.
And this season, I did really like. I feel like they've been using the neighbors a little bit more, and I do think they are like a funny addition to like when like I love that they invite them to parties. Like they like them enough that like
Hmm.
Laszlo calls him his best friend, and like they just hypnotize them so they forget, but they do invite them to their shit, right?
I love Marissa Winokur, so I think anytime you get to see her is great too. That's a fun episode idea, I think, is maybe the neighbors suddenly are unhypnotized and they remember everything that's been like that they has been taken from their mind, and then of course at the end they just get hypnotized again. But I think that'd be great. That'd be really funny.
Now I can't even remember his name. They killed him, but he brought him to the necromancer like
Oh,
immediately.
Derek.
Derek. Yeah,
Hmm.
I kind of liked that. And I can't believe they got Benedict Wong back for like a 2 minute scene.
Yeah,
That
that
man
was
has
great.
Marvel money. Like what was like one of your, I know you said your favorite episode. What was one of your favorite like bits of the season, like joke wise?
I love in the episode with like the broken water main. I love that Nadia like dyes her hair blonde and she tries to do this like southern accent to pretend to be like this girl from a farm as her like new identity. And not only that, but the doll has blonde hair suddenly.
Yes.
I thought that was hilarious. Um, I loved that. That's probably one of my favorite bits. Or at least it's the one that stands out the most in my brain. What about you?
You know, I think it might be, and it's such a like throwaway, but when John Slattery hits him with the car and then he's
God,
driving and like he won't stop talking to them, so they end up jumping out
mhm,
of the car because he
that's
just
hilarious.
is annoying to them. And it's like a
Yeah,
nice reversal for, because usually it's they are the awkward weird ones, but instead it's him and he's like talking about like, oh, I'm an actor, what's that accent? And they're just like, oh god.
yeah, get me out of here.
Because I was expecting it to be like, oh, we're gonna see blood splatter and they're gonna kill him in the car, but then it was like you said, they
They
do
couldn't.
that well of like kind of like swerving when you think they're gonna like go straight. They like take a
Hmm.
different turn, and like it's just a comedy, so it's not like it has to be twists and turns. But I appreciate them not going for like the obvious all the time.
Right. That they could have killed him, but they were like, no, I just can't stand to be around
Yeah,
him.
and I like it.
Yeah,
I
that's
like the
great.
callback to that at the end when he's with Patton Oswald, and he's like, "Do you know John Slattery?" And he's like, "Oh, he's an
Hmm.
awesome guy," and he's like, "Oh, he is," as if like Nandor's going to consider him a friend now, even though they did jump out of his car, and that's probably the last they ever spoke to him. But
But then doesn't he kill Patton Oswalt?
yes, who was actually being nice to him and like talking
Right,
to him.
right. So that's like the opposite of the other way around. That's so funny.
I wonder if shit like that, if Patton Oswalt's like, I'll do it, but can I get a death scene? Because I feel like I would love if I had like a stupid cameo. I'd be like, can I get a cool death scene? Because that would be cool and fun.
Maybe if your friend writes it, then you wouldn't even have to ask.
Right? I would love that. Well, Terry, thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah.
Maybe one day when I have Harvey on the podcast, we can talk Buffy with him.
Yeah. Oh my God. If you don't invite me, I'm gonna be really mad.